when the theme was Fathers Knows Best last month when I was here, it started going around in my head, and I was like, because I've been missing my dad, because I have a little house in Manchester, and he's not here anymore to help me with projects. So to give you a little context, my dad was he was raised on a farm outside of a town called Flintstone, Maryland. And this farm is where you measured it from this mountaintop to that mountaintop, and the still was up over there, and the spring was over here. And so he definitely learned, good work ethic and all that. And then he was in the Air Force, and he was an AP. So I learned things like, if you're not 15 minutes early, you're late. And if you don't do it right the first time, you're going to end up doing it, taking twice as long to do it over and do it right. So those kind of things he's instilled in me. So when he got out of the Air Force, my aunt had moved to West York, and so my dad came to York. And then he started working at the AMP, which was the original one, was over on Philadelphia Street. So that's how he got ingrained into York, and that's where he met my mom. And so they started a family, and they moved to a little farm, a big farm out the trail, Susquehanna Trail. So I grew up on a farm. But right before I was born, my aunt and uncle on my mom's side, they had started going to a little church. Well, it was little at the time, right over here beside Quantus Lake, which is now called Thrive, but back then it was something a little bit more traditional. So my aunt turned the clock forward an hour, and then my uncle didn't know she did that, so he turned it an hour forward. So they were 2 hours early for church. So they went and got my mom and dad out of bed and brought them to church. And that's where my mom and dad met their Heavenly Father. So tonight I'm going to talk about two fathers. All the things that when my dad and mom, when they met the Lord and began their faith walk, did that make them automatically rich? No. Did it take away all their problems in life? No. But what it did, and what I've seen in my dad, is there's a verse in the Old Testament that says, what does the Lord require of you? To do justice, but to love mercy, and to walk humbly with your God. And that was my dad. He was very humble. He was a servant's heart. He used all those skills and experience that he had because he could fix anything. And he always did it right. I mean, his way was the right way. And so he used that for his whole life. And I saw that testimony of my mom and dad, of how they loved others. And as I grew older, I began to realize, there were some things in my past that when I started my faith journey young, but all the ugly stuff seemed to happen after that. And I would be so mad at my dad. And it's like, well, he really couldn't do anything about abuse when he didn't know about it. So I really couldn't be mad at him about that. But then sometimes I would be mad at God about stuff. And it's like, well, whenever you hear people say, well, God doesn't give you anything that you can't handle, that's not in the Bible, folks. That's not in there. Because whether you have what you believe or don't believe, we live in a broken world. We can just look around. And there's and when the religious leaders, when they were questioning Jesus and they were trying to trap him in some way to discredit him, and they asked him, what's the greatest commandment? And he said, to love the Lord your God with all your heart and soul and mind. And the second one is to love your neighbor as yourself. And for me, it's like the hardest part is getting rid of the stinking thinking and not loving myself so that I can love others. And so what I've learned, all the things I've learned from my earthly father as far as ingenuity, and because I've been alone for 30 years. And so I've had to get over not going places by myself and things like that, and just being able to be healed from my past and be able to use that to encourage and love others, and what that really means. And the older I get, the more I understand. It's the humbleness and the balance of of just caring about each other. And so both my earthly father and my heavenly father have given me things where that have given me just the tools that I need to go every day.